This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road, Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Today we have an awesome show to share with you. Harriette Sucher is here, and Nolan Del Campo will be back with us here shortly. We're going to be covering the solves on the Sergeant Lynch letter and the no address letter. So we're going to take you backwards a little bit before we move back on forwards. Some of the things that I wanted to share today, just before we get started, are a couple of posts by a person named Jimmy. One of them, he said, "What do you think of Gary Francis' post? I'm not trying to knock down anything you do, but if it turns out to be him, I'm 100% positive that you are telling the truth." That's an interesting statement because I'm not really quite sure what to make out of that. Is he saying that they would be pinning it on him as a patsy? I'm not sure, but I know I'm doing my best to tell the truth, so thank you, Jimmy, for your belief. He also asked, was Jack's DNA ruled inconclusive? So I dug in deep and I found some information inside of Dewhurst's book. And remember, he is the professor from Arizona that had a falling out with Dennis and had actually absconded with some of the negatives to the film that he was attempting to get processed. He had given half to the FBI that he had found in Jack's belongings. He gave the other half to Mr. Dewhurst, and Mr. Dewhurst in the end refused to return some of them, or many of them, I'm assuming at this point, because he found something that he wanted to either use in his book for them, although I did not see them in there. So it still calls into question where these negatives and photographs are and what he actually found on that film. At any rate, I did find a section in his book in regards to the DNA, and this is what he has to say. Where things stand now, on page 275, he says, the FBI's public position is that the Zodiac case is still open, although the investigation has been suspended. New information is being accepted, but there is no evidence that they are actively working on the case. After years of effort, the FBI has not been able to eliminate Jack Terrence from the list of Zodiac suspects. After a Herculean effort to develop a DNA profile of Jack Terrence, the FBI has been unsuccessful in matching that profile to any of the Zodiac evidence. DNA extracted from personal letters from Jack Terrence proved to be sealed with someone else's saliva. In fact, two people's saliva. In 2009, Chris Hopkins told me that the DNA analysis of letters from the early 1980s showed that the letters had been sealed with a mixture of saliva from two different men, neither of whom were related to Jack Terrence. That's weird, he said. Long before the recognition of the power of DNA technology, Jack Terrence was sealing letters to his wife with somebody else's spit. Terrence also took pains, literally, to conceal his fingerprints. About 1973, Jack supposedly suffered burns to his hands while opening a hot radiator, destroying his fingerprints. The odd thing was, the pattern of scarring was remarkably even and ended with a clean line at his wrists, like he had dipped his hands in acid. At the time, the San Francisco Police Department was claiming that they had a handprint of the Zodiac. The hood samples of Jack's handwriting and the maps, which the FBI collected from Dennis Kaufman, are still in their possession, and the case against Jack Terrence is still open. The hood was deemed authentic by the FBI lab, and the material it was made from were available as early as the 1960s. If items collected by the FBI proved not to be of evidentiary value, they are returned to their owners. Dennis Kaufman has requested return of these materials, and the request was declined with the comment that the case is still open. The FBI has never issued an opinion regarding the handwriting and document comparison between Jack Terrence's writing and those of the Zodiac. It is the FBI's publicly stated position that they do not chase dead people. It is their policy that if they find that the likely perpetrator of a crime is dead, then they will close the case. The more than 40 homicides I've described in this book are still unsolved. There is no statute of limitations on homicide, so technically the cases are still open. Since the FBI does not have an official serial killer case against the Zodiac, then investigation of those cases is the responsibility of the local law enforcement agencies whose jurisdiction the crimes occurred in. However, since it is clear that Terrence's activities as a serial killer cross state lines, it could be within the FBI's jurisdiction if they wish to assert it. There is no evidence at this point that they do. So now, at this point, I'd like to bring on Nolan Del Campo and Harriette Sucher.
Good morning.
Good morning. Do we have Harriette there?
Yeah, my system crashed. How convenient. Okay, so let's.
Were you able to hear any of that I talked about on the DNA?
All of a sudden, for the last 2 minutes, so
it went okay.
But yeah,
so basically, I read have you read Dewhurst's book?
I mean, that.
Oh yeah. No! Now is not the time for technical difficulties.
I'm hearing not much from Harriette.
I know. Are you there, Harriette?
I see her.
I know.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There she goes. Okay, yeah, back.
Seems like it might be a buffering issue or something. Okay. So have you read Stephen Dewhurst's book, Harriette?
Actually, I read most of it, but I gave my copy to Dennis, about I think a year before he passed. So I did see the book.
It talks about the DNA testing of the envelopes that were given to the FBI, which I wasn't under the impression they had done any testing on, because the FBI, San Francisco PD was supposed to be the one in control of testing that DNA. But in his book, it indicates that they found that there were 2 DNA samples on the envelopes of letters that Jack had mailed to Nora, and neither of those profiles were Jack's DNA or a related family member. So he was literally sealing those envelopes with somebody else's spit.
Well, I do know that early on, Danny Reynolds' partial DNA, which was a huge percentage, like 40 or 45%, came back on the back of, if I remember correctly, the Halloween stamp. Now, what's going to blow you guys away in the near future, I have something from, I think, 72, where Jack is saying that he had Danny lick things for him.
Oh, okay. So well, we'll get on to 1972 then.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm like, I just keep plodding along when I do these. And this is a while ago, but I said, oh my God, everybody's been suspecting that he might have had somebody else lick 26 stamps, whatever. So,
Well, and obviously that's what they're saying after looking at the envelopes that Jack had mailed to Nora, is that there were 2 different male DNA profiles on there. And I remember at one point in time, I had offered to go down south and obtain the DNA samples of both Jack's former wife, Doris Reynolds, and of Danny Reynolds, but that never came to fruition. Either way, it means that Jack was keen to the fact that DNA was something that was actively being researched and looked at even in the 1960s. They were doing
this, I think, in the early 60s.
It appears he knows.
So, he was foreseeing the future. That's why he's
pretty much
Zodiac.
So yeah, I mean, clearly if and we got to remember too that these letters that had somebody else's DNA on it were also in the 1980s. So there's a possibility there had already been news that there was a DNA profile that had been compiled on the Zodiac letters to some degree, and that was being cross-referenced to other suspects.
Sorry, I just lost the screen again and something.
Oh no!
But anyways, I can still hear you.
We see you.
Well, just like any good criminal, stay on top of all of the techniques that could bust you, and stay ahead of the game so that they can't figure it out.
Mhm.
All right, come here now. All right. So we had looked over the no address letter, and we had looked over the Dear Sergeant Lynch letter previous to stepping into the Lake Berryessa murders. But we're going to go back now, and we're going to actually start with the Dear Sergeant Lynch letter and the key codes that Harriette Sucher found. I know that Terry mentioned last week, and I know you didn't see last week's episode, but he had mentioned that there could be multiple key codes out there floating around, and depending on which one you applied, you got a different message. But that the end user or the person that these messages were being sent to would have these key codes. I do find that interesting. Obviously, the CIA is using the newspaper to pass messages. The FBI is aware that people are using newspapers and Playboy magazines and things of this nature to get messages back and forth between criminals. So this is not something shocking that we're saying, you guys that the public has never heard before. The newspapers were a great avenue for this stuff, and I have to believe that if the FBI knew that the criminals were using it, the CIA was in fact using it, that the newspapers would have been very well aware that their system was being used to pass messages back and forth between criminals. How can everybody know except for the end user, right? All right, so I have thrown up here one of the questions I asked Terry last week. I'm going to ask you the same thing. Why the Zodiac felt the need to send in a key code 2 days after the Hardens had already solved it?
Oh, me? Because I do definitely have an answer.
No, please.
That because when you see some of the newspaper, and they were, oh my God, how the newspapers were relaying the code symbols. The most clearest ones, and I had a copy of it, was in one of the main newspapers, like the Vallejo one. Those were clear looking symbols, but the other ones, because they were smudged, they weren't the clearest looking symbols. And the Hardens came up with some fairly clear symbols, but their ideas of what they probably were, which they did good, but I'm pretty sure that's why he said, oh, well, by the way, let's send in the rest of the code key symbols, the code keys and the symbols, so you'll be able to define my messages better.
Gotcha. So in the Dear Sergeant letter, he sent in stating that he is providing them with a key code, which then there was a piece of paper that included the symbols next to the letters, how many symbols could be replaced for a letter and so forth. So almost as if here's the key to figure out or to solve the very cipher I sent you. And like I said, it was just a little confusing because the Hardens had already solved it 8 days previous. I could tell that it was in the newspapers at least by the 9th of August. So this letter being mailed on the 10th had a completely different agenda. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So the Dear Lynch, you used an anagram on this one?
I could show, let's put this up. I think I have it. This is my work that I started out with. I tried only taking out the misspelled things, and I tried it even as a code keys, and then doing it, and that didn't work. So then I started, as I went down the list of.
So what you're talking about is the grill cipher. You attempted to apply the grill cipher to it, and that didn't work.
Yeah, that didn't work. And then picking out the misspelled words that were in this Dear Sergeant thing, I thought, well, I can anagram something there. That didn't work. But then I realized, oh, well, let's just pick out all the common phrases that by now I know he'd be using and names. And that's when it just unfolded in one afternoon. And I said, oh my God, this is just a friggin' anagram, the whole thing. 54 years later, nobody figured this out.
Well, now let us remind everybody what it says. It says, "Dear Sergeant Lynch, I hope the enclosed key will prove to be beneficial to you in connection with the cipher letter writer. Working puzzles, cryptograms, and word puzzles is one of my pleasures. Please forgive the absence of my signature or name, as I do not wish to have my name in the papers, and it could be mentioned by a slip of the tongue. With best wishes, Concerned Citizen." So this is one of the first places we see Concerned Citizen. It's one of the first places we see them talk about codes and ciphers. We see that later in John Walsh's letters, the Scorpion letters, where he again talks about using these systems. And so have you found cryptograms in these particular systems that you've solved?
In the future ones,
Okay.
yeah, definitely in the future ones.
And word puzzles, what does he mean by word puzzles?
Mainly the word puzzles, like you brought up about John Walsh and the Scorpion cipher. I found the code keys to those cipher symbols too, using these basic ones and then morphing onwards. It's kind of hard to explain, but I also found stenographic code, and then with the stenographic code, you anagram also. The key word for Jack Torrance is anagram.
Okay.
And, you anagram and you're going to get the correct messages, but to
that, you've numbered each one of the letters that were found in the Dear Sergeant Lynch message with a coinciding number, and that means that below that, on the second box down here, when you place the actual message, you also place over the top of that the number of the letter and where you pulled it from the original message, correct?
Yeah, well,
that's why you number it. Yeah, that's why we've got all these numbers.
So I can keep track of all the symbols. They to me, they're just all symbols. So I can tell you for the longest time, one of the code key name phrases, because after a while you get to see that there's code key names, code key phrases. I knew he was avenging, or they were avenging Martin Luther King, so that stayed up in my process for a long time, but then I needed the M and the A and the R, and it moved to another section. So that's why you see the numbers not exactly in order, but then I'm moving them. And then I found it was approximately 303 symbols, not including a couple of the dots or the periods. So I don't want to confuse people, because I said that's really all I need to have. And shall I read the completed message, the more cleaned up version?
That's what I'm trying to get to right now.
Well, I have it.
Okay, there it is. Go for it.
I left out the word. I was wondering, why did he have the words puzzle twice? Because there was nothing that I could come out find in that. But once I worked my way down, I said, oh my God, he's saying to place the things, the Zodiac letters over the puzzle, to crunch up the 3-part cipher and put it on, one page, which that's what I've been doing for 5 years. So anyways, let me read it. It says, yes. PI, Private Investigator Lynch, which, by the way, he was a private investigator at the time also, if I recall correctly, reading his bio. So anyways, Private Investigator Lynch, we avenge World War II Kennedys, Bobby's Marilyn Monroe. FYI, for your information, combine newspaper code puzzle sections together, place Zodiac in parentheses letter over it, watch for misspelt word or words, odd punctuation, meet code symbols, choose which key, then anagram to solve puzzle, thus witnessing one get it pre-future before eyes. The Zodiac do his thing, i.e., therefore, to die. He said, who's going to die next? Is Brian Hartnell, Cecilia Shepard, Paul Stein, Nurse Lass, Wisconsin International Brotherhood Teamster Union, Mr. Hoffa. But usually he'll spill out all of Teamsters and Union in these, but sometimes it's just IBTU. But that's pretty much what it's saying. And in the future, that's what he's saying, who's going to die. But of course, Brian Hartnell did survive, but the attack was, I think, a month after this particular letter. It was September 26th, if I remember right, 69.
27th. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, it was more than a month afterwards. So the fact that he is now telling whomever at this point that his next victims are in fact these individuals, and we do know that everybody was attacked with the exception of last going missing, so nobody really truly knows what happened there. But we've seen Wisconsin International Brotherhood come up more than once, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not just really him, but he really hates Hoffa. I noticed when he was really, really hating somebody.
So is Hoffa the union head for the Wisconsin?
Yeah, Jimmy Hoffa, the Jimmy Hoffa who ended up disappearing. Oh my God.
His main spot was Detroit. He started Detroit, but the Teamsters are nationwide. He was the head of the entire union over the whole country. So Wisconsin's right next to Michigan. So, but he started in Michigan, Detroit.
Gotcha.
I think the aim was they were going to try to take him out in Wisconsin. He does say later on where it's not exactly him, but he's involved who killed him. He says it's Frank Sheeran did kill him, but the body went other places, and we can cover that later. But But they did definitely check Wisconsin a lot in the last 50 years.
And a lot of people have linked Hoffa to the JFK assassination.
Definitely. Right. That's why they're going after him, because he's saying that they believe that he and Sam Giancana were the two key co-conspirators, and then, got these people to do their biddings for them. So, yeah.
So let's focus on the fact that it's so now this makes sense. So we have the hard and solve, the gist or the basic premise of this message, which is probably what he wanted the public to see. But then, like as you said, putting the Zodiac letter over it and watch for misspelt words, odd punctuation, meet the code symbols, choose which key, then anagram to solve the puzzle. That's exactly what you've done here with this particular, this was an anagram, sorry. Yeah. When we get to the next no address letter, you use the method that he's talking about here with that letter, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely astonishing, because Terry said the same thing last week. He said, you're looking for misspelt words, odd punctuation, things of that nature that would draw you to that area or section of the particular communication. So we're going to continue on now with the, I did have one other, because this backed us up to the original 3 letters that were sent with the 3-part codes. And you actually had a solve with just the portion of the Z408 over the top of the San Francisco Chronicle letter that had the portion of the Z408, correct?
Yeah, something like that. So, this one right here, it's because I was able to number the lines, and I didn't do the time or the Zodiac symbol on that one, but this one came out good enough, and I put it in the book, because this one I believe was my 8th one, the 8th one that I had just did, because let's just backtrack for just a few seconds. I watched the History Channel's Hunt for the Zodiac, and they were saying that they thought that the Z340, which was coming in the future, was something like a grill cipher or a chessboard cipher that went on top of something. So that's when I started saying, well, let's see if it's going to work. And that's where this came up. I said, if this is working, if I take the Z340 and put it on top of the Z408 and get something unusual, which I don't have it with me, but basically it's stated, it says, my name is Jack, ask JFK government, but an abbreviation for government. So I figured I got a message there. I started doing the letters. And this is, I believe, my 8th one, the one that ended up in the book. So,
and this one is saying RK die, now Paul S2 in North San Francisco Presidio, or like you had spelt it all out, was Robert Kennedy die, now Paul Stein to die in North San Francisco Presidio.
Yes.
So again, he's predicting who's coming next, just like the FBI said. I found that astonishing because as we started working these together, and every time I would give you a new letter, it lo and behold actually yielded the individual's name that was about to die, who hadn't died yet but was up and coming.
Yeah, and the first page is, I think, the 7th or the 8th one. It's where it's stating where he's saying, "So I like killing people because it is polka dot dress Farron hit him right temple." Robert Senior,
I think we're coming up to that one. Hold on.
That's
okay. I think that's part of the no address letter.
This
correct?
is part of the no address letter. So you read them all together, and it's a message. So we can come up with the third part. The message actually completes it.
So on the first page, you had a solve just with the first page, right?
Yeah.
On the no address letter. And do you want me to read that, or do you want to read it?
It came up with SFPD. It's Jack Walker Torrance Majot. I think I had an MM that I found somewhere, but anyways, that would be Mike Majot. See some of me, but that he's stating that he's not in the police lineup. So he's saying that Majot did see him shooting, off to the side, like partial, because he was.
Yes.
The story is he was using a flashlight and, couldn't see all of it. But so he's saying he's not in the lineup, but he's saying Majot did see him.
Now, he also, I also note that "see some of me" is, I think, a phrase that we saw in the lipstick killer anagram by Lawrence Swearingham, correct?
Yeah.
And I believe that in Tim Miller's letter as well, he said, see more of me, or it's a very familiar statement. I feel like I'm getting goosebumps right now because I've heard it in more than one communication.
He's this when you complete all of them together.
Well, let's hold on. I'm moving page by page.
It's meant for Nixon. It's the whole message.
Yes, and I have that one at the end, which is the complete message. Oh, she froze up on me again. Oh, no. Are you still there?
I see her, but I can't hear her, and she's not moving.
I know. They froze her. They froze her in place.
Like my cat. My cat died this week.
Come back, Harriet. Come back. Oh, I hope her system didn't crash again.
Move your head, Harriet. Can you hear us?
Well, we wouldn't know if she could.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to continue on and hope she figures this out.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What the hell did Paul Stein have to do with anything? Out of all the Zodiac killings, he seems so odd. He was a graduate student driving a cab to pay for college. He was going to get his master's, become a writer or a teacher or whatever. He seems so random. I think.
Well, isn't that the cab drivers are part of the union at this time, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
And we also saw it was
Yellow Cab. Yeah,
it was Yellow Cab. I think that Harriet does have the answer for that. She does believe that he has some type of. She believes that there's some type of involvement with the death of Robert Kennedy.
Robert Kennedy. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So weird.
Maybe he's the cab driver that drove somebody, involved with. I don't know. In fact, that'll be a great question when she comes back on. It looks to me like she had to reset, and she's probably trying to climb back onto the show because her picture's gone now. So I'm thinking that crashed once again. But here's the letter. This is the second page of the no address letter where the solve that she got from this particular page said, "So I like killing people because it is polka dot address Farron hit him RTR senior ICU." And so basically that is supposed to amount to, "So I like killing people because it is polka dot dress Farron hit him, Robert Kennedy Sr., right temple, intensive care unit." So he believes that.
That's definitely Robert F. Kennedy assassination. There's lots of people that saw a woman in a polka dot dress with Sirhan on the night of the assassination of RFK at the Ambassador Hotel in LA.
Oh.
And
now, is there any sighting of her at the hospital?
No.
Gotcha. So, and I can't imagine she would have been dressed in that same polka dotted dress at the hospital. She's likely, I think she believes that. Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Ask Harriette, Nolan.
You're back. Yeah.
Nolan's got some questions for you, Harriette.
So one, why Paul Stein? It seems so odd that he's in this whole mess. And then the second thing is that polka dot dress reference is definitely about the woman that was alleged to have been seen with Sirhan the night of the assassination of RFK.
Let's address the Paul Stein question first. Yeah. What is your belief there?
Looks like she froze again.
Are you still there, Harriette?
Hold on a second.
Oh, nope.
Oh God. Well, only 20 more minutes of this.
But, okay, so what's your take on Paul Stein? Why is he involved?
Well, polka dot dress reference is when I saw that, I said, I know I'm on to something.
Hey, Harriette, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Paul Stein. He asked why you believe Paul Stein was involved.
Paul Stein? He's saying that in other solves that I have, that Paul Stein was helping Darlene Ferrin to kill other people, to kill, mainly Bobby Kennedy. So Paul Stein is like a broker in between Hoffa and Darlene Ferrin to get things in motion. And that he helped also.
Maybe he's just the driver. What if he's just the driver?
Yeah, like something like a driver, but also had I think got her the gun, because that's future solves to come up with, but to do. But so he's just like he's a go-between between Hoffa and Ferrin, and I guess it was the way he made his living, taxi driver by day, but hey, I got the gun here, give me $5,000 for it, and give it to somebody else. So
does that answer your question, Nolan?
Yeah, it seems still so. I mean, kind of odd. I don't know. So anyway,
well,
there's still a mystery.
And I don't know if he had the ability to predetermine who would pick him up. Didn't he make a call, obviously, for the cab, or how did that work out?
I'm going to probably make a few people down in San Francisco angry, but it looks like since Mayor Alioto at the time, which, had his mob ties, was also Catholic, was also a very big fan of, the Kennedys. I mean, a lot of people were. He was also the mayor's office in that building. If you had to get your contract or your approval to be a taxi driver, you had to go through that section, that office in that building. So it looks like it was just, the possibilities that since Stein was new to working for the taxi company, that it was a setup to help get him the job. And then where he's shot is just, I think, blocks from Mayor Alioto's home. So, they were really, apparently a lot of people intent, in my view, going through Jack's world, intent on getting the people that killed the Kennedys. I mean, they were just done with them.
So I guess the backstory could be that he was just simply a hardworking individual trying to obtain his master's degree, but that everything she said is plausible, I think, Nolan. I mean, literally, he could have been given that job specifically for this task. We know that nothing that the Zodiac did was random. All of everything what he did was intended, and he predicted He predicted these crimes. So maybe what she's saying is right. Who knows?
Who knows? My basic take is that up until then, the San Francisco cops weren't really that heavily involved in the investigation because none of the killings had taken place in San Francisco.
Correct.
So, but the newspapers were heavily involved, and the FBI and whatnot. But I think my take is that he might have done this to get a different jurisdiction involved, so that there's competing jurisdictions and all, not sharing information with each other. In San Francisco, Paul Stein was the only victim of Zodiac that we know of, anyway, that was killed in San Francisco. But yet San Francisco pretty much took over the whole investigation.
Which was odd. Yeah. And I do know that the no address letter kind of sent him into a frenzy, because they accused him of not being sportsmanlike in his attempt to shoot or kill, or that he was less than trained for what he was doing, and he wanted to prove that he was. Also, I think they had made statements that his act of killing young couples was kind of chicken shit, if I say that. Sorry, people. And I think that that's why he went after, I thought initially that's why he went after the lone strange male. Now he's going to, hunt and kill somebody of his own stature, so that it isn't perceived that he's just attempting to attack kids. But again, there's just so many different ways about this.
It was the story that sold the newspapers. And it looks like Jack is saying, well, there's so much involved here, and it goes all the way back to the White House, the current White House. Well, they're going to love me now, but but I mean, it looks like it was an operation to just really, because they were done with these people and they were seeing how out of control they were. And now Nixon, who by all accounts, and I think Nolan will agree, did not like the Kennedys, now has a bullseye on his forehead. And these people kill presidents. So they were we're going to go get these people, and we're going to do our best to create a smoke screen so they could get Hoffa and Giancana and all the ones underneath that they had to get until they got the two finally under Ford. Yeah.
Let me make another point about Paul Stein that relates to RFK and then actually relates to Manson. Okay, the police report that went out right after the Paul Stein murder was that it was done by a black guy. When the people that phoned in, no, they said it was a white male. But for some reason, it went out over the police radio that the suspect was black. So therefore, the suspect walked right by two cops on his way to the park and the Presidio and made his getaway. He walked right by him. And in Manson, they kept blaming the murders, or they tried to frame the Black Panthers for the killings that the Manson clan did. Then if you look at the police response in the RFK, it went out right away by the main cop that was there, the only cop that was at the Ambassador Hotel. They didn't have any cops there, despite the fact that they had all these primaries. It wasn't just RFK. There were other elected officials running in different parties going on, but no LA cops at the Ambassador Hotel. So the one cop that's there outside, he encounters two older people who say, there's a woman in a polka dot dress that just say, we've shot him. We who? Oh, the senator. We got him. Boom. And they run off. And this cop puts that out over APB to dispatch. And then about an hour later, they kill that.
Yes.
They stop looking for those people. So,
well, I'd like to say something about
Paul Stein and in RFK are similar. It's disinformation.
Exactly.
Well, the polka dot dress reference, once I saw that, there's a book called...
Oh, so we were just getting to that, and I just told the public that was. So the solve on the second page of the no address letter, I explained to them, said, so I like killing people because it is polka dot dress Farron, hit him, Robert Kennedy Sr., right temple, intensive care unit. So did she attack him at the hospital, or did she...
At the hospital.
Gotcha.
And let's just note that even Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that the bullets that they found for the autopsy don't match the holes in his father's head. that were in the right temple. Like something else happened after he got into the ICU. So you have a family member stating that I haven't believed that Sirhan Sirhan is the main killer. I think Sirhan Sirhan is probably involved somewhere, but he's not the one who killed Jack and his crew.
His bullets did not hit
Kennedy. Kill him.
He shot a gun several times that night, but no, Robert Kennedy was killed from point blank range, right behind the ear.
Oh, is that me or you? Okay, anyways, but quickly,
I don't know
about the polka dot dress. Once I saw that, because there's a book out there, it's called Project Artichoke, and I bought it, and I got it somewhere. Anyways, it's by David Sylvie, and he dies just before the book came out, the rest of the way. But he's stating what a lot of people have said, that they believe Darlene Ferrin was the one in the polka dot dress, and that Project Artichoke was Zodiac to go after those who had to do with the death of Bobby Kennedy. There's a book out there on this.
And Artichoke actually is right before MK Ultra, right? So it went Bluebird, Paperclip, Artichoke, MK Ultra.
Yeah.
So
that's and COINTELPRO, another,
Right,
so
right.
The third
and
page.
COINTELPRO was on Martin Luther King.
Yeah, it's all domestic spying and infiltration and whatnot.
Well, that brings us to the third page of the no address letter. Here we can see some of the work that Harriette has been doing, where she has laid the girl cipher over the top of it and has pulled out those particular misspellings and labeled them with correct or coinciding symbols, correct?
Yep.
And this is kind of what here we're looking at, where you found those particular letters in which row and which line.
Yeah. And I thought I messed up where it says at the bottom where it's saying get in row 17, but that's actually should leave because that was a code key phrase that I saw, get even. Once I saw that, I says, okay, he's going to say something about getting even. And he did. He's saying they're going to get Hoffa and all kinds of things. But shall I read it? What the salt
Yes,
is?
actually, let's go ahead.
Okay, so it says Richard Nixon.
Now, this is all 3 pages together, right? Or is this just the last page?
This is the last page, but if you put it all together, it's going to be a message, for Nixon. But anyways, it's saying just this third page, Richard Nixon, I.O., his favorite Latin phrase. For him, it means years of documents in order. We got a process going, and we've done something now. It says, M.O. modus operandi, bum Jimmy Hoffa send Darlene Ferrin to hit Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Oh, i.e., therefore, modus operandi, I'll get even a SOB Stein in San Francisco. So that's what it's reading out as. He can be pretty expressive in these anagrams, where you're decoding, trying to contrive with the messages. And it's not really spelling out Richard Nixon. It is saying RN, but then, he uses a lot of Latin, and his favorite, again, IO and MO are some of his favorite Latin phrases. But anyways, that's pretty much what it says. And if you put it all together, this whole thing is a message for him, for Richard Nixon. And can you hear me?
Darlene Ferrin, so last plays into this because Darlene Ferrin purportedly used Donna Lass's nurse's credentials to get into the hospital to make sure that RFK was finished off, because he was alive when he got to the hospital, right?
Yeah, he even stated as he was leaving, after he got shot, is everybody okay? And then he survives the surgery, but he doesn't survive the ICU. And that's something that even Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talks about to this very day. So,
go ahead, Nolan.
Do we have a picture of Darlene Ferrin? Because the girl in the polka dot dress is described by several people. She's shapely, nicely figured, young, but they say she has a funny kind of nose. So I wonder if we have a picture of her.
Let me
I wish I could dig that one up because I found a picture.
I'm going to Google it right now.
I was just going to say, let me see also if I can. I know that I have one from, we got about 5 minutes here, but let me see if I can find one to throw up.
Darlene Ferrin.
All I know is one of the descriptions of her, some early descriptions I was able to find, but I can't find it now, 5 years later, was she had this kind of bun on the top and, similar to where you see her.
She's a cutie. She looks like she'd be shapely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right?
Yep.
And she's young. She's fitting. Darlene Ferrin is also, Sandy Betts had indicated that she ran in the same circles of money launderers, drug running, and people from Chicago.
Counterfeiters. There's allegedly involved with counterfeiters.
Correct. And Sandy Betts had actually been implicated or questioned by the FBI in 2 different counterfeiting rings because she was circling the same people and dating the same people that Darlene Ferrin was. So we are seeing some definite mob connection there. And she was purportedly spending some of that counterfeit money or playing with some of that counterfeit money, talking too much. There were a whole lot of reasons I would think people would want to take her out if she was exposing them too much.
Yeah, that would link her because that's Hoffa is doing the money laundering through state line and those areas. So, it's, after all these years, you can draw the links together.
Right.
And Darlene Ferrin would have been 22 at the time of the RFK assassination.
Right. And young, just like they said.
Yep.
So
wow, she fits the description.
As generic as it is, yes, she does. And she did ultimately become a victim of the Zodiac. And we do know that the Zodiac clearly was not just some random killer out there on a spree. Though I think that he continued killing, and maybe because, just like Harriette said, he did his job in taking out these people responsible for the Kennedys and Martin Luther King and all of this other stuff. And then he's left out in the cold and not paid.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding out in the 70s. He's a very upset, and by 2001, he's really pissed. Okay, but we'll get there sometime.
And the power has changed hands several times. So those that were over the top of him to begin with, like Richard Nixon or Eisenhower or what have you, all
or Alvin Dulles.
Right. And all of these people track back to The Family. Have you seen that yet on Netflix, The Family?
I still don't have Netflix.
Yeah.
No, I don't have Netflix.
I'll come into the 90s soon. The new millennium.
The Family means so much more to me now than it ever did before. Obviously, after watching that is just basically one of your. I see that Terry is trying to make some comments here, and I want to see if I can figure out what they are real quick. So let's see. Cab drivers were in a position to link their fares to nefarious sources like drugs, booze, prostitutes, etc. Facelifts, plastic surgery, as in the 1940s Bogart movie, Dark Passage. Dark Passage took place in San Francisco as well. Jurisdiction change. That makes sense, Nolan. So he's responding. I think JT ducked into a high-end house after Stein's hit. Probably not the Presidio in Con Park.
It might have been Alioto's. It was just months away.
You know what's really funny is that the gal Moonlight that I've been dealing with, she had indicated that the houses that Jack had actually rented or listed in his paperwork that I have him for in San Francisco and in Berkeley, these were all very large, 4,000, 5,000 square foot homes, very nice areas. So yes, him ducking into a high influential location would likely be his getaway, and the cop shop obviously helped him to do that by calling out for a black man instead of a white man so that he could make his way right on through and get out.
The CIA had safe houses. This guy named George White.
Yes, Telegraph Hill.
Yeah.
We knew him.
Yeah, they were. So they had places in San Francisco. It was one of the San Francisco, New York, and other places, but those were the two main areas that they were doing lots of mind control experiments.
Jack's residences after he came back from Japan in 1959 and got released early from the military, I believe, so that he could continue with the MK Ultra project. Both of his residences afterwards were within miles, not tens of 20 miles, but like within 7-8 miles of these safe houses that are involved with the MK Ultra project. He was definitely right around the corner, basically. And again, 4,000, 5,000 square foot homes in very nice areas.
Yep.
Well, can I just say,
that is it, actually. If you guys want to wrap it up really quick, this is our final minute here.
I just want to state, if people want to get more information, I do run the blog, dbcoopersolve.com, and there's so many blogs under that has a lot of decodings like this that help get people. I try to walk them through how it's done from the 70s, 80s, 90s, etc.
Okay. Is there anything else from you, Nolan?
I'm good to go.
Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for a wonderful show. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, kids.